Module 1 Review, My Responses. In this quick review, I will be discussing my responses to Module 1 and how I use them in my classroom. Please don't allow my responses to sway your answers. I'm just stating what worked for me to give you an example. My answers will only give you insight to my personality and my approach to teaching. Remember to keep in mind that what works for one teacher may not work for you. So let's begin. Which theory or approach resonates with me? I actually have a two-part answer to this question because I used a blend of two approaches in my classroom. First, the assertive discipline approach worked for me because I'm a bit of a control freak. Therefore, creating my classroom management plan ahead of time and implementing it day one was very appealing to me because I knew how I wanted my classroom to run from day to day. This approach served me well throughout the years. Students viewed me as the authority figure in the classroom and respected the structure I provided. They also came to appreciate the expectations I had of them. The second approach that resonated with me was the instructional management approach by Jacob Kunin. This approach worked well with my personality type and teaching style, which I will discuss in more detail later in this presentation. Since I'm a well-organized and planned teacher, I was always able to stick to a schedule and be consistent. I was very good at keeping my students productively busy for an entire class period. Therefore, using the components of this approach, witness, overlapping, momentum, smoothness, and group focus, allowed me to run my classes smoothly. Let's take a look at my personality traits. For openness, I'm only slightly open. I'm definitely a creature of habit and only like trying new things occasionally. For conscientiousness, I'm very conscientious. I'm well organized and have a strong sense of duty. I'm also dependable, disciplined, and achievement focused. For number 3, I'm an introvert to the core. I'm a really shy introvert, which is an interesting mix, especially in the classroom. I need plenty of alone time. I'm a little socially awkward, but sometimes I can be charming. And I prefer small group activities, but mostly I like being solo. For agreeableness, I fall somewhere in the middle on the agreeableness scale. I can be trusting and helpful at times. However, I can also be a bit cold and standoffish as well. Neuroticism. Full disclosure, I'm a little bit neurotic. I tend to be a worrywart and experience frequent anxiety. Just being honest for the sake of this course and to give you some extra insight into how I teach. My personality type. I'm a blend of type C and D. For a long time, I thought I was a type A personality. However, after some research, I have learned that I am more of a type C personality with a bit of type D sprinkled in for good measure. For example, I'm a perfectionist that plans, sticks to the rules, is consistent, and doesn't like disruptions. I absolutely thrive on having a routine. These are all type C traits. On the other hand, I'm a bit distressed and teaching can be very overwhelming for me. I'm also a loner that prefers my own company. Therefore, you won't see me in the teacher's lounge laughing it up, which are all traits of a type D personality. My teaching style and approach. I prefer the hybrid teaching style. This style worked perfectly with my subject matter, philosophy, and personality type. My personality leans towards a more teacher-centered approach to teaching. Plus, science lends itself to this style because of the subject matter. I firmly believe that certain topics need to be explicitly taught via lecture. Therefore, I use the demonstrator style to introduce most topics. I incorporated multimedia presentations, activities, and demonstrations into most of my lessons. At other times, I had to adapt a more student-centered approach because science requires students to think critically and work in groups to do labs. Therefore, on those occasions, I would become a delegator or facilitator depending on the activity. Finally, let's talk about my strengths and weaknesses. For strengths, I'm consistent, organized, and well-planned. I like to call them my superpowers. They served me very well in the classroom because I never missed a beat. I was able to keep the flow of my lessons going and stay on top of behavior. Weaknesses. One of my weaknesses is that I'm not always flexible. Therefore, I must constantly remind myself to be more flexible and less rigid throughout the school year. Low self-esteem played a role in how well I performed my first year of teaching. It affected me both personally and professionally. I lacked confidence in my abilities. I constantly had to work on it or at least fake it till I made it. I had to quickly gain a backbone in order to appear confident in front of my students. Trust me, this took time, but eventually I gained more confidence in my teaching ability. Plus, the more I taught and the more success I experienced, the more confident I became. Finally, my shyness directly affected how well I communicated with parents. I was always nervous about calling parents or having a conference. My anxiety would get the best of me. Sometimes this would prevent me from communicating at all, which was not a good practice. Therefore, each year I had to constantly work on my communication skills and overcome my shyness, fear, and anxiety to better communicate with parents. This is the one weakness that plagues me to this very day. We have now reached the end of the Module 1 review. I hope this provided some additional insight into how my personality, strengths, and weaknesses played a significant role in how I developed my classroom management plan, philosophy, and teaching style. Be sure you have answered these questions openly and honestly because they will be a tremendous help when you create your classroom management plan. We will now move on to Module 2. See you there.